Hello, and welcome to the Argyle Financial Controller Leadership Forum. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our moderator, Philip Peck, Vice President, Advisory Services and Finance Transformation Practice, Peloton Consulting Group. We're excited to have Philip and our panelists for a panel discussion titled Growth of FP&A, Establishing a Successful Forecasting Process. Welcome, Philip. Over to you.
Nick, thanks so much, and greetings, everyone. I'm personally extremely excited to be moderating this session, as this topic is highly relevant for the financial controlling and FP&A community, and we have an outstanding group of FP&A leaders here today who will be sharing their insights and wisdom throughout the discussion. Before we get started, we're going to do some quick introductions, and I'll start with myself. As Nick said, I'm Vice President of Advisory Services and Finance Transformation for Peloton Consulting Group. Our company helps organizations drive digital transformation across their enterprise, providing advisory, consulting, and managed services across enterprise performance management, enterprise resource management, supply chain management, human capital management, CX, analytics, and data management for the cloud. I've spent my entire 35 plus years of my career in the FP&A domain area, working in various corporate roles, as well as management consulting roles, helping organizations explore the art of the possible and adopt leading-edge practices across the entire FP&A function. I'm now going to have each of our esteemed panelists introduce themselves. Dipti, could you go first?
Sure, Philip. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I'm Dipti Arora. I'm a finance leader in the tech space. In my current role, I'm VP of Finance of a late-stage tech DevOps startup called Circle CI. I had FP&A for them. Circle CI is a delivery platform that allows developers and software teams to validate and ship change quickly and confidently. I've been in the FP&A space and in the leading finance teams for 20 plus years now, and I've been doing that for a good portion of my career for technology companies. I'm based out of the Bay Area, so good morning to everyone that's here in the Bay Area in California. I'm very excited to be a part of the panel today and looking forward to our discussion.
Dipti, thank you so much. Valcour, would you like to go next?
Hello, everyone. Valkyr Correa. I'm the VP of Corporate Finance at Bahamar, an amazing $5 billion investment here in the Bahamas, Nassau. Have 25 years of experience in the hospitality business, starting as a server assistant all the way through different operations until I hit the finance world, and I've been here for the last 15 years of my life, doing a lot of hotel implementation around the world, and today I'm responsible for the digital transformation in this massive resort. We have 5,000 employees. It's a $800 million revenue operation, so a lot of challenges. And then, as you may guess, hospitality business is a very manual process. So trying to bring some tools so we can be more efficient. Thank you for having me, and I'm really pleased to have all these amazing talents with me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. David, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure, Philip. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is David Orr. I'm Senior Vice President of our Global FP&A team, and I work for a company called ABM Industries. ABM is a more than 100-year-old publicly traded facilities, services, and management organization. So we have about 130,000 employees, mostly concentrated in the United States, some in the UK and Ireland. And we basically take care of buildings. high-rise buildings, manufacturing and distribution centers. We do a lot of work at airports, for example, and it's really building services. So think about janitorial, engineering, parking services, energy infrastructure services. So I've been with the company for about 25 years, and I started in actually an operational role back in the day, evolving to do some M&A work and integration work, and then most recently into the FP&A roles many years ago. So excited to be here, based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. I spend most of my time in New York, which is where we're headquartered, and look forward to the panel discussion today.
David, thanks. Carla, last but not least.
Hey, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Carla Rodriguez. I'm a CPA in the New York City area. I started my career at Ernst & Young over 20 years ago. For the past 10 years, I've worked at various industries such as hospitality and tech, like my panelist partners today. I've worked mainly in financial leadership roles the last 10 years that focus on growth and transformation. Currently, I am leading financial reporting and FP&A at a global commodities company in New York City, and I'm excited to be here today.
Fantastic. Obviously, we have phenomenal backgrounds to all of you, and I'm sure you're going to bring your different experiences, expertise, and war stories, if you will, as we go through the questions. So let's start at the top here, from the first question here. From your experience, how have you seen the FP&A function evolve over the past few years? And if you have some real-world examples, maybe you could bring that to life for us. And David, I'll start with you, and then have Dipti, then Val, and then Carla answer the question. So, David?
Thanks, Philip. So, in my world, I've seen this evolution of much less what I would call reporting of the news, and much more how do we influence and drive results? Because I think the true value of an FP&A function is really derived from how we leverage the power of our information, and we show that information to the business in a manner that they can make really good business decisions. So real world examples, to do that, you've got to be super connected to the business. I push my team every day to embed themselves as business partners. So that means going on sales calls, which is not always comfortable for finance folks, sitting with the operators and customers in business reviews, injecting yourself into pricing process, for example. All of those things connect you to what's really going on. And back to my first point, it really does give you an opportunity to understand how to influence results, because you understand what's happening on the front line. And so for me and my team, I think it's that operational connection that's so critical. And that's the biggest evolution I've seen of the function over time. Frankly, in our group, we're driving to spend less time behind the computer screen, and more time engaging directly with the business and driving value.
That's fantastic takeaways, but one immediately pops into my mind, David, is that whole notion of, to become an indispensable business partner, you have to be part of the business. You have to understand the business. You have to engage the business, speak their language, such that, to your point, you can add insights, analysis, and value to the organization. Dipti, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some pretty unique circumstances over the last few years with the pandemic, and now a challenging macro environment, especially in the startup space. So I think FP&A has really had to evolve from maybe historically doing something at like a regular cadence where we're pushing out forecasting and reporting on a monthly or quarterly basis, to really evolve to having your pulse of the business, being super integrated with the business. And as David mentioned, supporting your business partners with providing insights. But also we've had to now start to turn around information very quickly, right? So you see something's changing with the business. FP&A is having to ingest that, turn it around quickly, and then share with the leadership team or their business partners, what does that mean for the future of the business? So I think for us, scenario planning became very critical over the last few years. How do you sort of take these different cases of the levers that matter to the business, and then put that into your models, and then share that out so that the business decision makers, your business partners, or the executive team understand what different levers lead to a different outcome for the business. That was very critical with the changing business environment, and now with the somewhat changing macro environment, it's been really, really critical that FP&A is driving that and helping helping the leaders of the company with the decision making to understand what different outcomes drive different impact for the business, and then we can be agile and change as we see that the business is achieving different results. We can pivot quickly if needed, and FP&A is really driving that decision making and at the lead of helping the decision makers navigate through those changes.
Those are fantastic insights. The notion of things like from an FP&A perspective on demand, like we don't have the luxury of waiting. The organization needs the insights. They need us driving the bus. They need us front and center to help optimize decision making in tumultuous, dynamic, and crazy times. Val, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and that's very important. That's why it's very important for us to start to incorporate all these new technologies, right, into our modules and in the way that we are doing business today, right? So if you start in hospitality, it's always a very manual process. So a lot of the decision making on producing those financials and forecasts and modules was always right with the finance team. Now it's like a partnership. I mean, I love what Dave brought in terms of experience, because you really need to be shoulder to shoulder with them, teach them right the operation, how the numbers works, so they can help you build all these modules. Because you can be the most amazing person in terms of producing modules, but they are the ones leaving every single day the operation, and they need to contribute with you so you can have accurate information to provide to the executive team. So we need to leverage all these different technology, and then of course there is always this fear of people thinking, well, and what is going to happen to my job, right? So if you see 5 years ago, people saying that accounting is going to disappear, FP&A is not necessary anymore, and then what you see is the complete opposite of it. I love this Neil deGrasse saying that he's mentioning, let's put AI and RPA to work all the boring stuff, so we can focus in what it matters. So that's what I'm seeing and I'm betting that's going to be our future. More human factor, less data, management and things like that. Let's leave the AI to work on that, and let's focus what matters, which is exchange, information between human beings.
Wow, powerful insights. That a term that I've heard recently, the FOBO, fear of being obsolete. You spun it completely 180 degrees to say, oh no, we need to take advantage of that to give us the bandwidth and capacity such that we bring our human intellect and partnering to help the business make better decisions.
In the end, everybody wants someone to blame, so we need to be there anyway.
That's entirely true. Carla, your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, sure. So the panelists spoke about a lot of the things that I've seen. Basically the onset of additional technology, new technology, automation, but again, there's a lot going on with the business partnering and working with operations. And what I've seen, I guess, since post-COVID, and speaking of remote and hybrid, it's been an opportunity to get finance and some other individuals or other teams involved in certain meetings and strategies and planning that maybe didn't have the opportunity to before, because they didn't have whether the physical access or there was a geographic or whatever it was a culture thing within the company. But now if there's a Zoom meeting, we could include different departments and different team members that are perhaps like planning, and instead of new meetings trickling down, oh, by the way, this is happening, and maybe hearing it not real time, and next week and the week after setting more meetings and more meetings, they could be involved in those meetings and they could attend and listen to what's going on. So just having that access and building on that business partnering, but instead of being involved secondhand, it could be more firsthand because of the accessibility.
Great insights. And I love the different perspectives each of you are bringing, because we can kind of cull everything up and summarize it. The business partnering theme, the being highly proactive, The two-way street, Val, that you talked about, it's the back and forth with the business. It's not, it's bidirectional. All of these elements kind of contribute to that secret sauce. Next question, and I think this is going to speak more to the finance function and the FP&A function itself. What are CFOs and their teams focusing on to ensure that the entire finance and FP&A function, including financial controllership and accounting, are operating successfully? So this one, I'd like to start with Dipti, then Val, then Carla, then David.
Yeah, Philip, that's a great question. I mean, in a startup world like ours at Circle CI, where the business model is constantly evolving and the finance processes are less structured, a lot of my focus and my team's focus is actually in ensuring that there's communication, collaboration, and agility within the finance team so that we can get things done successfully. And then also cross-functionally with the business, because we have to work hand in hand with the business to provide value. But then if the business model is constantly evolving and we're pivoting because things are less structured, then we have to make sure that we have a seat at the table. We're there, we're part of the strategy, we're informing the decision-making as needed. So a lot of my focus as a finance leader, and sometimes even within my teams, like the leaders within my teams can be on at the beginning of any given quarter, aligning on key goals and objectives that we need to meet. Because those are constantly evolving as the business evolves, and we have less structured processes. And then after that, having open paths of communication so that as things are changing, we know what to change. I know how to redirect my team to support the business correctly, and also to make sure that I'm bringing everybody along, right? So, and then this can become especially even more critical and harder to do in a remote or hybrid setting, because everybody in the team may not be getting the message consistently or receiving it in the same way because we're not in the same workspace. So it becomes even more critical that you have the open lines of communication, you have means of really collaborating, and being in sync on what are key things that you want to achieve. Then the second area of focus that I have is actually working towards getting some formal cadences set up because we're less mature, as you would in a larger company setting, as some of the other panelists are. A lot of my focus goes into making sure that we have a regular cadence. We're setting up the necessary processes and governance that is required for us to be more mature as a company so that the finance function can run as a well-oiled machine, and we have the basics in place that are needed for us to do that. And then on top of that, supplementing it with what I was mentioning, the changes in the business, making sure that there's ways for us to collaborate on that, both within our function, cross-functionally, and also keeping the paths of communication open so that we know what's going on with the business and we can pivot as needed.
Wow. There's a lot of gems embedded in. One immediate thought popped into my mind that what you're describing is all the elements that comprise a playbook, like something where you have the governance, you have the structures, you have the communication. To your point, you expect the unexpected. You don't know what's coming at you, but at least you have mechanisms such that you can deal with it, you can work with your team, and then work with the business to adapt on the fly.
Yep, exactly.
Val, how would you like to answer this one?
Yeah, so what we all are seeing in the market right now, right, is like a crisis of meaning in our associates, right? So the way that I like to attack this, right, and try to minimize that is something that we need to all understand. And please listen, don't fear the change and jump on this technology that it's popping up everywhere, right? So I'm very forward in terms of automation in finance. Our department is very manual, a lot of manual processes. So you really need to jump in this train that's already departed and understand that is not going to harm you. Actually, is going to help you. In a market that people are carving, right, craving for meaning, you really need to focus your team to do meaningful tasks, meaningful things. You cannot have someone just typing things or doing, like a robot, right? That's why we have all these new technologies to help you. So the one thing that we are doing here, and it's really amazing, it's producing a lot of good results. We are focusing massively in RPAs and AI's technology, so our team can actually start to contribute more and more to meaningful tasks. And what you see, it's that shine in the eyes again, that they are learning things, that they are contributing to something higher, and that for sure will drive your business to success if you do that. Of course, in order for you to audit and keep the documents and all these controls in place, we already know that, right? Everybody here understand that that's very important. The thing is, how can you bring meaning to this department, to these associates? And the only way to bring meaning is giving them meaningful things. And how can you do that if you don't have enough time? Well, time now, there's a way for you to liberate times in its betting on this new technology. RPAs and AIs, there's plenty of opportunity there. We can always share some good stories there, but this is something that I really want us to all to focus, right? Push this department to the 21st century.
The theme I'm hearing loud and clear, Val, is empower them. Empower them, but also challenge them to step up and really leverage the skills, the expertise, the knowledge, and say all these leading edge tools, be it RPA, be it AI, be it machine learning, those are mechanisms such that frees up capacity and lets them really thrive as an individual to contribute to the greater goal.
And as finance leaders, I was in another forum the other day, and then there was one colleague that was really upset because all these new generation, they want to come and they want to be 1 year to become this and that. And I took 15 years to learn something. And I said to them, calm down. It's not your era anymore, right? You already know what you need to know. If they take just 1 year to get where you are, let them, right? That's what we want. We want them to push things further. We build the base. Now it's time to them to bring to the next level. Let's join forces. Exactly what you're saying. Doing meaningful things together. We're in this together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Carla, how about your thoughts on this?
So what I've seen financial leaders focus a lot of time on in recent years, and it has a lot to do with kind of continuing this conversation, is with the onset of all these technologies and automating systems comes a lot of necessary support and reallocation of resources. So what I've seen and also currently focusing some of my attention is making sure that the systems to automate are running correctly, so there's no gaps, and there's a higher percent of accuracy and things along those lines, so that the machine is running smoothly and we can go and focus on other tasks and things instead of now reallocating the time back to accounting staff being more administrative, or now being more focused on IT, or kind of shifting the focus to new problem solving and troubleshooting. So again, automation is great, but making sure that we have the correct support in the right areas.
That's I think a very important aspect for anyone listening. There's an element of due diligence in ensuring you're automating the right things versus automating the cow path in the city of Boston. You straighten out the cow path. The metaphor is a little bit trite, but where you're going is do it well, such that you free up capacity and time. Just have your due diligence and do it well. David, turn to you on this one.
Yeah, great commentary by my colleagues here. We have a saying, we like to say, operational cause drives financial effect, right? And for our finance team to operate successfully together, everybody has to understand and speak the same language, I would say, about what operational cause is. And very basic things like when you say labor happens to be our biggest cost input. When you say labor, what does that mean? Does it mean burden labor? Does it mean contract labor plus our normal labor? Just those very definitional items I've found over my years, syncing everyone on how to talk about those and talk about them the same way helps you translate the story internally to the board and to management, and externally, if you're a public company, to your shareholders. So without that, you have kind of misfires when you're talking apples and oranges sometimes. So I have found that investing time in making sure there's commonality of language, especially as it relates to operational costs, really drives a high performing and functional finance team.
That's a really important aspect of the finance and FP&A ecosystem: consistency of definitions, standardized terminology. And there's that, as you're describing, David, what do you mean by labor? But then there's, how do we count it transactionally? Where does the data flow? And to your point, you have to get that right, that when you're doing the interpretation and understanding the financial impacts, you have a common way of thinking about it. Well, keep going here. In terms of a next question, we're going to spin it a little bit into the forecasting world. From your perspectives, what does a successful forecasting process look like to ensure long-term agility, flexibility, and preparedness for whatever could happen? Val, start with you, Carla, David, and Dipti.
So in my experience, when you think about forecast and budgeting, and you can come up with all these formulas and take the last year and then put whatever you want. But what really drives good forecasting and budgeting is if your operations is with you there, right? So they're the ones seeing further, right, operationally what is happening. And then if you don't understand that, and then you become very egocentric, what it ended up happening is you just have figures that is there maybe to show like this flat 10% increase here and blah blah blah, and that's not how we should be doing business, right? So and this has nothing to do with technology, right? What I like to call is the human factor. But before you even discuss this type of things with operations, you need to, like David said, and you mentioned as well, Philip, we need to teach them. So it requires a lot of efforts, right, from you to be there and teach them these simple terminologies, but can help them understand first their financials, and then they can start to project themselves, right, what they think they're gonna do. Because you can be, very good, but you never know when a machinery is going to break or something in the horizon is coming, and they see all these things, and you cannot be blind about those things. You need to really put your ego aside, having these conversations one-to-one to understand the business, and then and then try to put that in numbers. Simple example here, we have a golf course. I never knew anything about golf course, right? And then what drives those things? Well, I went there, right? And then you start to have those conversations, and then you start to understand the costs related to those areas, and then you start to understand, well, there is the weather factor, and then not just that, maybe the El Nino and then La Nina, and then all these things plays a role. So you cannot do like a flat 10% if next year is gonna be a headache in hurricanes. So things like that you only know and you only understand if you are there with them, right? What I like to call the human factor.
Wow. And in some sense, forecasting is a team sport. You have to engage the people who, like your golf course example, I think is highly, highly relevant. There's unique factors and considerations, and to your point, things you can't even expect, but you have to have, in some way, shape, or form, accommodate that in a forecast environment.
Yeah. And then, for example, here we have many different types of business. We have casino, we have golf course, and we have F&B operation, inside and outside. So then you have all these different moving parts, spa, and then we have like boats and a private jet. So they all have their unique drivers that you need to understand. So it's impossible for you by yourself to have all these things in your mind. It's really a conversational thing to create like a perfect or the most accurate forecast or budgeting for you.
That's great. Carla, how about you?
So definitely agree, and relevant as far as our previous conversation as well, to finance being involved in operations and so on. But I think for me, creating a flexible budgeting process is something that I know Dipti mentioned a little bit earlier, was to have scenario planning. And the way I'd like to see this done is kind of best case, worst case, and base case, and understanding risk factors and, you know, what may play in. And, you know, like he mentioned just before, you know, when can a machine break down, and, you know, what's the likelihood and what are the percentages? What would that look at like if X amount percent, you know, broke down all at once or all this year, and how can we plan for that, or how can we know to reallocate the resources there, and you know, what would that plan be? Because having the agility, I mean, the other thing with agility and being flexible is making sure the team is prepared for that. The systems and the processes are set up for that, and they know what to do. So if we have the best case, the worst case, and our base case in the middle, you know, if the best case, we know that we can continue in a certain way. If it's the worst case, we know what to do. Our team is prepared, and we're coordinating with operations, and we know how to pivot. But without that, you know, you need the process. So, but I think also with the process, if you already have a plan, it's a lot easier than say, all right, well, we knew this might have happened. Now what do we do? Well, we kind of have a plan already. It was already, we spent time on it, we discussed it, we agreed on it, and now we know how to pivot.
So you're describing not only running all the multitude of scenarios, that's one. Two, then developing contingency plans in the event something unfolds.
Right.
And then three, making those contingency plans actionable, like trigger and say, take those steps. That's great. David, how about yourself?
I love the question. Got some battle scars dealing with this this particular topic, as I'm sure we all do. You know, for me, my perspective is time is our most valuable asset in our world. And at the end of the day, what I found when I started in the FP&A role years ago, we were spending so much time sweating the small stuff on the P&L, and we were trying to get all of these line items absolute perfect from a forecast perspective that represented, you know, 50 basis points of our total costs, or some incredibly minute small number. So we actually did some math on it, and when we shifted away and focused more on the 2 to 3, the big drivers, right, that really drive the business, especially from a cost perspective, and we kind of gave up a little bit on perfection on the noise, I'll call it. Our forecasting process and results and accuracy improved dramatically, and even more so, we got more time back. And for me and my team, that was the most valuable thing, because that was more time, again, we could spend with the operations and really figure out how we influence those results. So, you know, my 2 cents on this one is, don't get caught up on things that don't move the needle. It sucks your time, and at the end of the day, the value add is very little.
I love your perspectives. It triggered a thought into my mind, something I learned many years ago from a professor at Harvard University, Dr. David Kaplan, the founder of activity-based costing. He goes, Philip, I'd rather be directionally correct than precisely wrong. So to your point on counting, you know, the staples or whatever the minutia of what you used to do in the battle scars, it's focus on the critical few drivers. What are the levers of the business that you control or don't control, and orient your forecast around that. Dipti, do you want to weigh in on this one as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a lot has already been said by the rest of the panel, but I think all of those are really key points. I mean, you want to make sure that your forecasting process is automated enough to where, you know, you can run it and turn it around quickly. If you're producing a forecast on a weekly basis for your revenue, let's say, it doesn't help if you're taking 4 days to run your model to do that. So it needs to be automated enough. Drivers need to be grounded in the business, you know, and tied off and in sync with the business too. I found that to be really critical too, not just grounded in the business, but have you tied off with your business partners that actually, you know, are responsible for those drivers? Are they in sync with those assumptions that you're making around your forecast models? That's really critical. The other thing that I kind of triggered from what David mentioned around the forecast and accuracy, what I've actually found with forecasting models, and we and I've done in like a lot of my prior roles now, is actually tracking how accurate your forecast is versus when the actuals come in, because that can give you a good sense of what your variation is in your model and can prepare you for the scenario planning that Carla mentioned, right? Like what could be a downside, what could be an upside, and how much variation is there in your directional forecast? Because sometimes we get too pegged on like this absolute number, but I think if you're tracking how your model is working and how accurate it's been historically, you know what level of variation to expect from your forecast model, and that way you can have better decision making because you know what range of outcomes you're looking at there. So I found that to be actually really, really helpful in informing decision making in the business and not getting too pegged on an absolute number that you're giving from your forecast models.
I think that dynamic is very, very important for organizations. In my experience, there is a tendency at times to want to say, benchmark myself against forecast accuracy should be plus or minus X%. Maybe, maybe not. To your point, you need to really understand the elements that contribute to that forecast to say there could be natural variability where you're never going to have that tight of a forecast, but that's okay. It's understanding the fundamental drivers that impact the financial results and then manage what you can, deal with what you can, make decisions and analysis around those factors. So to your point, you need to be very diligent and mindful of even what forecast accuracy is. Before we get to the Q&A section, definitely want to have at least one more question here for all of you. And we've touched on this in elements, but I'd like to elevate it and bring it to the forefront for all of you here. What new tools, technologies, or automations have you been implementing? And along with that, what role does AI and AI-like capabilities play as you've been doing these kinds of projects? David, start with you, Dipti, Val, and then Carla.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. Great question. I think like everyone else, we're learning about what we can do with AI and frankly, what we can't do. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about how it will solve everything for a lot of organizations. So we're kind of taking a cautious approach. But that being said, we, circling back to the forecasting process and the accuracy, we've implemented some statistical modeling techniques. And we found out that about 50% of our individual P&L line items, travel expenses, cell phone expenses, the small stuff I was talking about earlier, we can predict that within 90 to 95% accuracy on a 12-month go forward. So again, going back to time as our most valuable asset, we're using these models. We use a model called the Holtz-Winters model. It's exponential smoothing. They're not complex to stand up if you have good historical data to work with. But we're using these to automate that part of the forecast and make those line items something we really don't have to think about. Again, so we can go back and focus on those 2 to 3 real big important drivers. So it's exciting for us to be able to do some predictive modeling with accuracy, and again, be able to save time on the process so we can spend more time with the operators.
Wow, powerful, powerful. I imagine that's been an interesting journey as you've been navigating those waters.
Sure.
Dipti, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I find AI within the finance space is still very primitive. I think AI in other areas, like in software development and stuff, is still way ahead than what it is in the finance space. And it has the potential to actually completely disrupt what the financial analysis space looks like. I mean, imagine being able to put in a raw data set into like some AI tool and say, hey, tell me everything about this data set that I need to know historically. How is it performed? What are the different indicators? What is it telling me about this data set? And then even asking it what it would predict in the future about that. That would completely disrupt, financial analysis and what even insights like our teams are able to give, right? I've seen a lot of the FP&A tooling doing anomaly detection right now pretty well. We're using that, like tools like adaptive planning and whatnot. They'll tell you things like, okay, this number has been trending at this, but now you've got it forecasting at this different rate. It'll kind of like pop up and give you some kind of anomaly detection. So tools are doing that pretty okay. That's still very basic. What we have implemented at Circle C, actually, it's not so much AI, but we've used machine learning to set up a revenue forecasting model. So our business model is not a typical SaaS model where we're charging a license and then that's how we're recognizing revenue. We only recognize revenue if a customer is using our platform. So it's a consumption-based model, which means there's a lot of variation in the way revenue is across our different customers. So what we did is we set up a machine learning model using an open source software called Profit from Facebook. Using that, we set up a model for account by account forecasting for our revenue by customer. So what it does is it takes a few key factors that we have given it, saying, okay, look at these historically how this customer has performed on these 3 or 4 metrics, and then using that give like a 12-month forecast for it. And then every month we actualize it, and then it has a little bit more data points. So we've done that. We've leveraged that machine learning for like our revenue forecasting. So we use that as one of the models in addition to some of our other revenue forecasting models that we have set up, as well as an additional data point. But I think there's still a lot to be learned. And I think we're learning, as David mentioned, we're learning as we go along of how we can better leverage AI within the finance space. But I think there's still a lot of potential for it to like automate our work, to make it, to provide better insights and really, really disrupt the financial analysis space.
Well, just listening to you, I think you've progressed far further than you're giving yourself credit for. So it sounds like you and your team have done a phenomenal job. But to your point, it's not a silver bullet. That's a constant learning process, and you're evolving over time. Val, how about yourself?
So the leader in the market for RPAs, which stands for robotic process automation, and is starting to tap on the AI. I think is this company called UiPath. Let me see if I can show here. Right?
Yes.
Kind of. UiPath. So they are the leaders in RPA automation. So I really recommend you to check on it. And right now they are partnering with SAP. So they are creating this really integrated system for accounting with generative AI. So they are really building the next phase on this type of things about automation. So here we use a consultant company that leverage this platform, which is UiPath. And the one thing that's very nice and it's free for everybody here. This company UiPath, they have like what they call their university that teaches you how to do RPAs, right? How to build automation in your system. So really nice, a feature for you to check it out. Is really good for you to see it.
I think that's great, and that there's someone had posed a question in the chat around, in so many words, for organizations with very limited or no budget, how do you get started? It sounds like something like that, Val, would be a path forward that's lower investment, lower resource commitment to get started.
It's like David said, it's your time. And the other one, it's really, really popular. It's Google. Google have also their free university for data analytics. It's amazing. It is $49 per month because you need to use this platform for Coursera. But they give you really nice courses for free, so you can leverage this and then be on this in this new way.
That's great. Love the recommendations. Carla, on this question, we'll let you kind of close the loop.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, a lot of what others were saying. So predictive analytics, the RPA is definitely working with those. But another thing I think has been data visualization tools to create insightful dashboards, Power BI, and, just kind of bringing everything to life, which helps connect, to different stakeholders, how they view data differently than some, numbers people or Excel people or, worksheet people. So I think, that's been really helpful, and again, kind of brings everything to life and is easy to read, has been very quick to analyze. Once you have, especially I should say, once you have those kind of other tools in place, and then, you bring it to life and round it out.
Those are great insights there, especially around the elements of the visualization of data. So on that, there's a question posed that I'd like each of you to respond to, and then I think we've got about 5 minutes, and we'll kind of wrap it up here. The question, literally question imposed here: since analytics is fueled by data, it seems that data is a critical enabler for FP&A. What are your FP&A biggest challenges related to data, and what type of partners in the marketplace do you wish would help you solve some of those problems, e.g., financial systems of record, data lakes, visualization, or something else? And David, I'll let you tackle this one first.
Yeah, appreciate it. Great question. Well, data is the foundation of everything we do, right? So what we have found, and again, large organization, ton of transactions every month, every year. We've had to sincerely invest in our data quality and integrity, and maintaining that data integrity. Else you just get garbage, right? It is truly garbage in, garbage out. And I think people underestimate the amount of investment it really does require to maintain the right attributes on each of the records, and because that drives all of your reporting at the end of the day. So for me, all of these companies that are listed in the question in terms of the output are great organizations and deliver fine product. But if you're not addressing the input, which your company should own, right? And we should help own as FP&A practitioners, because we know the business and we know the data. If you don't invest in that, it's really not going to matter which organization you bring in on the back end.
Makes complete sense. The adage, garbage in, garbage out, or data is the new water, data is the new oil. It all comes back to the integrity of that data. Dipti, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, definitely +1 to what David said. I mean, none of these tools will help you solve cleaning up your data. If you've got bad data, none of these tools are going to help you solve that problem. I mean, what you need to do is you'll need to invest as an organization, as David was saying, to make sure that you're cleaning up the data. What we found was helpful is identifying what the source of truth was for each data set was really critical. For example, okay, any HR data, we have Workday. So Workday is our source of truth for HR data. Salesforce is our source of truth for any sales related data, bookings data, and whatnot. Our ERP is our source of truth for expense related data, revenue related data, right? So identifying what the source of truth is, and then tools like Snowflake are obviously great in helping you have all of that data in one place so that you can store it in your data lake, easy to integrate the information from all of these systems and then present it in visualization. So I've used Looker in the past for visualization. We're using Mode right now at Circle CI. There's many visualization tools available, and then they can easily source the data from a data lake like Snowflake, so that you don't need to manually have to put data from 10 different systems in one place and then paste it all together or visualize it. The data lake helps you to do that, but you got to first solve the problem of having clean data and making sure that you have the right data sources identified and the information is clean from those data sources going into one place. And then there's numerous tooling there for visualization of the data.
Makes complete sense. 2 minutes, or actually about 1 minute here. Carla, and then Val, real quickly. Any last thoughts on that data related theme?
I just want to say, sorry. I add the same thing. That was the first thing that came to my mind is, accuracy and also the timeliness, how quickly are we getting that data? So yes, it has to be scrubbed down. You have to make sure it's accurate, but with all these add-ons and all these steps, are we able to get it in the right time? And, do we have to reorganize our system to be able to get it in that way? So.
Yeah, and then really quick in overall, right? So don't be afraid to test new things. Invest your time where it matters, talking to people, and then please, as as a tip, eliminate all the various or the baggage or the trash accounts, right? The miscellaneous. Go there and eliminate and force yourself to create new things, so you're gonna be good.
I love that closing thought. So first, I'll speak for myself here. Thanks so much for providing your insights, experiences, and wisdom through the discussion. I know that I have a number of gems and takeaways that I plan to incorporate into my life as I work with clients. And thanks to all the participants who joined the session. Nick, I'll hand it back to you.
Great. And thank you all for such an insightful panel discussion. I also want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event.